Okay. Good morning, everyone in Cambodia and around the world. Welcome to the last day of our conference for the Cambodia First International Conference for Mentoring Educators 2020. Today is not so different from the last 2 days of our conference because we have more special guest speakers from Australia and USA to share the enlightening knowledge to all of you. Well, before we get started, we would love to inform participants that this morning there are two main sections, parallel and plenary sections. Of course, parallel sections start from 7 until 9 o'clock, and plenary section starts from 9 to 12 o'clock. So after parallel section, we would like to invite everyone to join our plenary section by clicking the link we will drop in the chat box later. Now, okay, moreover, I would love to inform everyone that all your microphones are muted by default. More importantly, if you have your camera on, please consider appropriate and behave properly. Last but not least, if you have any questions for our guest speaker, please drop them in the chat box. Now, please let me introduce our first speaker for this morning, Professor Neil from USA. Today, he will be sharing with us about development of virtual introductory physics class and lab module for virtual experiments with open educational resources, OER. So everyone, please welcome. Thank you.
Hello. Good to go?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So we have like 2 minutes or so. We starting now? Or
yeah, you may start now, sir. You may start now, sir.
Can we start now, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. So my name is Dr. Haldo. I'm from New Jersey, USA. So I've been teaching like in this business like almost 20 years, different places. So today I will talk about during this COVID-19, we work on a couple of projects, especially focusing the teaching introductory level physics. So in this project, we develop a fully online physics class. So I will talk about that in this talk. Okay, so let's continue. All right, so in this talk, I will talk about very briefly a couple of basic items. First, I will introduce the background of the learning management system. That is one of the very important components for the virtual classes. Then I will talk about how to do the virtual classes, how we done. There are various methods, the method we focus on. Then I will talk about the lab portion of this class, because that's one of the important thing in any science classes. Then finally, if time permits, if we have time, I will talk about the student learning outcome, how to analyze that, and then that is one of the main part of any course. Okay, so in generally, there are concern of the virtual physics classes in any country. The two main reasons, one of the reason is actually delivery of the experiment part. That's very, very concern for any physics professor. If you talk any physics professor, the virtual physics experiment, nobody really like that. And the other concern is about how to measure the student learning outcome. That one of the main component we actually working on over the years. Now, this project, one of the important aspect we actually wanted to address is the open education resources, because we developing ourselves couple of OER textbooks and the lab manuals. And also in this particular project, we use all the OER for the simulation and all the lab purposes. Okay, so I will give you this specific in a bit. So now in terms of arranging the class, so what's the most important thing is the learning management system. Since the class is fully virtual, So everything has to be done some way electronically, right? Because of that, everything, if we can do it in one place, that is the best way to address this kind of class. So there are the various, the learning management system nowadays, but we use Moodle mainly. And the other one is actually Blackboard. We try that too. So the Moodle has actually even open source. It's free to download and use it. But we have the paid version. So there are a lot of facilities and then functionalities in those things compared to the general use in the K-12 education level is the Google Classroom. That actually not really good enough learning management systems. So that's something to keep in mind. So the why we use the learning management system, because it has a lot of advantages, right? So that we can fully manage the class, everything electronically, and not only that, the student can access everything anytime they wanted 24/7 by using even mobile, tablet, laptop, or whatever the way they like. Now let's take a look what sort of things we done with the learning management system. So in our project, we actually use learning management system mainly to share all the lecture notes. So I usually write all my class note in a tablet. So my laptop can convert it into the tablet mode. So I write all the class note and then I share everything with the student immediately after the class. So you can upload, there's no any space limitation, no anything, upload anything you like into the LMS system. And all the videos we share with the LMS system and all the class videos, any short videos and everything you can share with that. And the external resources you can share, especially when you share in the videos, if anybody concerned about downloading, resharing by student unnecessarily, then you can prevent the download. They can watch the video, but they cannot download the video. So there are a lot of advantages. And in terms of assessing the class, I usually do pre-class quizzes, post-class quizzes, things like that, everything done with the LMS system. And I done a couple of polling and the surveys with the LMS system, and the grading center, it has actually very inbuilt grading center. A student can actually keep track on the grades as the semester progress. And all the exams, quizzes we done with the LMS system. I will talk about quizzes and exam in a little bit in detail. And the lab portion is completely done with the LMS. I will talk about lab portion also in a bit, okay? So if anybody have question, you can raise the question. I can even, we can do like a discussion during the talk too if anybody have questions, okay? All right, so let's go into the detail. Like the using LMS system is actually, there are a lot of options. So generally when we arrange the class, there's two way we do the class management. One method we call the module schedule. The other method we call the weekly schedule, which means when a student goes in, the front page, the introductory page, this is how it look like. So if it is arranged with the module schedule, what the students see in the left-hand side, you will see all of these are modules. So when they click on each module, they can actually see what inside the module, okay? And then on the other hand, you can see on the right-hand side, weekly schedule. So which means you can see each weekly there's a folder, and when the student click on each week, inside the week, you can see various items. Whatever we planning on doing that week, all the lectures, notes, videos, everything you want to do, all the quizzes, if there's an exam, all of those going to go under that week. So that's the basic difference between module and the weekly schedule. Otherwise, it's the same kind of things going to divide into two categories, okay? And if a student goes into one of those items, for example, in the weekly schedule, this is week 2. On this semester, in the beginning, you can see in that week, there are various things we're planning on doing. There's the lab we are running on that week. This is the link to submit the lab, and then there's a data sheet submission separately, things like that. And then similarly, on the other hand, you can see right-hand side, if a student go into the module schedule, this is actually one of the lab module. Then you can see all the lab submission, the lab manuals. This is a video we use for the free fall lab, everything gonna go into that. So the student need to just go into LMS, and then everything gonna be there. So the other than LMS, we don't use any other thing for the class. So that's the main advantage using LMS system. Now, the earlier I mentioned that the quizzes and exam can be done very easily. So how we done during these last 2 semesters, because of the COVID particularly. So we ask the student to, because this is the example which I got from the calculus-based physics class. So we don't do any multiple choice question. Otherwise, lockdown browser is actually there to use with. So what I ask is student to just write it down everything. I proctor the exam myself. I will show you in a bit how I proctor the exam. And they write it down, all the answers very in detail. And then I open the exam in my tablet. I write it down. I correct the exam. You can see it. If there's any correction, then I can make a circle and then ask what is the correction is, and then so on, or reduce any points. I hear a couple of background noises. I hear a couple of background noises. Okay, let's continue. And then if you want to just give comments in typing, then you can actually type them here on the box. And then the student can actually real-time observe even this kind of module, or you can actually block the student view until you complete the corrections. So there are various options actually. And that's one of the important option which I use for the quizzes and the exam. So also LMS can handle plagiarism. So which mean this is one of the example from the lab report, right? So you can see there's 2 examples here. The left-hand side top, this is a lab report which is student done in this week. After they submit into the LMS, LMS has actually inside inbuilt plagiarism checker. So what it does, it actually compare that lab report with the internet, any sources, and the databases, scientific databases too. So as a result of that, you can see on this left-hand side one, this red part right here shows 0. So which means there's no match at all, perfect report. And then you can see here my comments for the report. And on the other hand, right-hand side, this bottom corner, you can see this 24%. So which means the student actually either copy paste, or maybe this is a theory part only, showing here either they actually read and then rewrite without rephrasing. So as a result of that, the system automatically identify which is coming from where. So as a result of that, either we can ask to correct it or reduce point or whatever it is. Okay, so there are a lot of advantage actually using LMS system in any class, not only even the virtual classes, even the in-person setting, that actually very useful. Now let's talk about how to deliver the class, right? There's various options in terms of virtual class delivery nowadays. Zoom is actually the most famous one, but we use for this case WebEx. I use the Zoom also for some classes, but the WebEx is the official one in our campus, so I use that mostly. So there's no different. Everything the Zoom offer, the WebEx has the same things. There's no difference at all, almost very same. Screen sharing, multiple application sharing, breakout rooms, chat box, class recording can be go into the cloud, the WebEx cloud or the Zoom cloud. Because of that, we don't need to worry about saving or any videos into our computer because of the disk space. Everything easily can share with our LMS platform. Because of that, a student can access easily. That actually can do the download preventing too. So that's very useful. And attendance and all the student activities can record it directly. When we record that session, I will talk about that also in a bit. Since everybody using the Zoom these days, I think most of you familiar with those kind of things. Now, how we conducted, there's 2 ways, right? This virtual class is done synchronous and asynchronous. Some instructors record the class and then they put the recording into the LMS. but most of my classes I done synchronously, which means student has to log in as they usually come into the class with the right time. And then we do the class as we usually do in person setting. So when I do the class, I use my tablet, the tablet mode in my laptop, and I use at least, I separated out my screen into like 2 or 3 segments. You can see on these pictures on the top, I'm sharing a whiteboard, which I can write and explain everything. This is actually, we done a detailed question here in rotational dynamics. And you can see on the same picture on the left-hand side on the top, there are a set of questions. So I can talk about the question, what we dealing with, and then explain everything, and then slowly develop the solution. And then real time, you can also ask the question from the students, their feedbacks, and then so on. And on the bottom here, left-hand side, you can see I'm sharing a simulation and then using question, because that's a friction problem. So it's easy to show where's the friction direction, where's the friction force coming from, what are the free body diagrams, what are all the forces in that particular problem, and then so on. It's very visual for students. It's very easy to understand actually. So there's a lot of advantages like that. This class actually very interactive. I have seen student engagement is very high. So generally there's no difference considering the in-person class and the virtual actually. It's almost very similar. So then because of the COVID, this situation we are in now, so the one of the biggest problem with the university level or the college level and I think the high school level people dealing with nowadays is the academic integrity, or the cheating, things like that in the exams, right, and the quizzes, right? So the lockdown browser is good, but the problem with the lockdown browser is that it's useful only if you're doing the multiple choice or short answer question, or a student can write an essay like the English classes, things like that, it's good. But for physics class or chemistry or math classes, lockdown browser not much helpful, because the student has to do a lot of equation problem solving. So a student can't type anything. The student has to actually write it down. So what I did, I proctor the exam by using the WebEx. So it's very easy. So you can see here, I staring at the computer, and then we have about like 20 students, and then you can see each student has to align their webcam. I should be able to see their working area. And then if they try to use a secondary computer, or if they try to read something during the exam, I can actually see, okay? This is a calculus-based physics class, which is about 2.45 hours continuous exam. And then it worked well, except couple of problems you have to deal in the beginning of the exam, because you can see this, this highlighted, this yellow area, that webcam angle is not good. So the very beginning of the class, before we start the exam, we have to make sure everything is fine. What I did after I detect this is picture I took before the exam start. I talked to that student, asked to rearrange the camera angle, and then everything works fine after that. So the whole 2-3 hours I staring at them, and then they know I'm proctoring, so there's nothing happened. The class average is very similar to the in-person class. There's no difference at all. It works very nicely. So those are the biggest advantage actually in terms of virtual teaching. So the other basic things we use for the lab also we done by using the LMS system and the WebEx. So let's talk about the lab portion a little bit. That's one of the biggest problem with the physics and all the other science classes for the virtual. So the labs, we actually done pre and post lab questions via LMS, which the Moodle in this case, and the Blackboard. And all the lab quizzes and the final lab exam also we done by using the Moodle. And the lab report submitted directly into the Turnitin via Turnitin to the Moodle. The Turnitin is actually embedded software in the Moodle, which do the plagiarism checker, so which means anything copy paste from the internet or any other source, it can identify without any problem. And the way we done the lab in this semester is actually very similar, which I explained earlier how we done the class. So how we done the lab also, we share the simulator window, and then in this semester what we done, since we actually doing everything online, we actually give more focus into the data analysis section. So that we ask every student to do all the data analysis calculation, all of those in the Excel. So which means they are prohibited to use the calculator and the papers during the lab class. So all the data we collected from the simulator, you can see this data sheet right here, which I showing them how to collect the data and do the analysis for one part. Then the rest they do themselves. So that basic the structure of the data sheet I provide them, and then they actually follow the step by step. So it worked nicely because the using computational data analysis is one of the main focus nowadays. So every student must practice that anyway. So it worked very nicely. It actually much faster than the real in-person class setting, because there's no problem with the instrumentation or anything. We collect the data by using the simulator, where all the labs, I will give you in a bit details of the lab manuals and things like that. All these lab created very similar to the in-person class lab. So the student has only one disadvantage, which they don't have the physical lab setting. Otherwise, the lab run exactly same way as we usually do. So then in terms of labs, one of the goal in this project is actually creating series of lab manuals. So we created 3 sets of lab manuals. All of them are freely available. I will show you in a bit links to download if anybody interested. This is a series of set of lab which we created for Physics 1, generally considered as a mechanics, but it includes kinematics, mechanics, energy, momentum, rotational dynamics, things like that, okay? And all of these sources, which are open resources, some of them are simulations, some of them are video trackers, but everything is free to download and then use it. So this whole lab manual is actually already published and then freely available to anybody to download and then reshare as you wish. And the E&M lab manual, which we created, each class we created about 11 to 12 labs, as we usually do in the real in-person class setting. And then that included about six or so electricity lab, and then about 2-3 magnetism lab, and then about 2 or 3 labs include the oscilloscope. And then all of these resources again are actually free to use with those things. So it's very, all these labs are written very similar to the in-person real lab setting. We collect the data with the simulator, very similar to the in-person setting, and then we analyze it, do graphical analysis, all the calculation by using the Excel. This is the set of lab we created for Physics 3 class, that generally the fluid, thermodynamics, waves, and then double slit experiments, the optics, and then photoelectric effect and the radiation. So we have one class separated out all of those. So all together we created about like 35 lab manuals individually, but the 3 sets of labs for each class. So all of them can do almost everything we do in-person labs. Only difference is that we collect the data by using the simulator. So that's the only difference. So let's talk about the couple of results we actually observe from this project. So the few results what we observe is actually we first compare the advantage and the disadvantage of the virtual and the real experiment. So there are a lot of advantage actually virtual experiment. So one is easy to design, right? You can design any lab along the way you're teaching. Like if you have a class tomorrow in one particular chapter, you can think about some new experiment, you can test it out, because nothing to worry about the physical setting at all. And the physical concept and principles can easily show students very in detail. So actually, I have seen a student can grasp the information much easier than the physical in-person class setting. And it's time saving because these labs are running without a setup, it's a simulator. Because of that, it can be done very, very fast, all the collection of data and analysis. And the biggest advantage is actually every student can do the lab. They don't need to worry about anything because otherwise in-person setting, we have limitation of the setup. So usually 2 or 3 member group we run generally, okay, sometime up to 4 member group. But for this case, every student just need the computer. They can just do their own. So that's the biggest advantage. And in this particular semester, we actually emphasize on the data collection and analysis by using a computational tool instead of using a calculator, because calculator is not good anything beyond the high school level. Any data analysis nowadays has to do it some sort of computational way. Doing the calculator analysis for the labs is actually not important or useful at all in modern world. So that one of the key concept we implemented, and then we have seen a lot of good results on that. And the learning goals can check it very easily. You can ask a student to share their monitor, make sure they collect the data, they do the data analysis. If they have a problem, you can jump into the breakout rooms and then explain that. So the things are very, very easy. And there are a couple of disadvantages. One is the real physical setup, they don't have it, and they can't troubleshoot. Other one is the data is perfect. So there's no any big advantage of error analysis. So those are the only 3 disadvantages we have seen. Learning outcomes. So this is one of the important aspects we actually working on, development of that into a journal paper now. So we don't have a lot of time to discuss that, but generally what we try to understand is the 4 important learning outcomes. So the understanding, apply, analyze, and evaluate. So that's our main 4 important concepts. So to analyze them, what we done quizzes and the exam and the detailed lab report, particularly for the lab portion. And then we analyze all the students' data by keeping the same kind of rubrics. And then we have seen actually the virtual labs is as effective as the in-person lab. There's no difference at all. I compare the data from this semester virtual experiment to the last semester real in-person setting. The same experiment, only difference is that the virtual collection of data, both are almost very similar, and then some aspect virtual data is better. So which means student outcome is actually, learning outcome is actually much better. And we collected the student feedback. If time remaining, I will show you that a couple of their feedback. Their feedback is actually very good. So the most students are very much happy with the way we done the class, and their learning goals they achieved, they are very, very happy about it. And in conclusion, so what we done, we develop a virtual class, including the lab portion for the physics. In our college, the whole physics class, the very first time actually we done fully online. Otherwise, usually we don't offer physics classes fully online. So everything going to be in-person classes. And the class is fully web enhanced by using the learning management system. And the class sessions are done with the video conference tool. And the most important aspect of this whole project is actually developing the lab manuals. We developed the 3 lab manuals for each class of physics 1, 2, and 3. I will show you the information about where to find those lab manuals in a bit. Okay, next slide. And then student feedback shows they are very, very happy about their learning. And also the student learning outcome, confirm their learning outcome is very similar to the in-person setting, okay? And finally, so this slide, since I already shared the slide, you can download the slide on the conference website. And then these links, these 2 links right here, this is actually our first lab manual, Physics 1. It's already published on this archive. So it's free to download and then reuse it. And then all the lab sessions are actually recorded. If there's any problem with how to collect the data with a particular simulator or things like that, you can actually find those information here. Those are YouTube videos, they're free to watch without any problems. And then other 2 lab manuals are actually on the way. Those things available on this web link right here. So that's about it. And then thank you for listening. If you have any question, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Professor, for sharing us the good topic about the physics class. Okay, Professor, now let's start with the question and answer session. And let me read the question for you from our audience. The first one is from Ling Sim. The question is, how long did you spend on preparing the lessons, meeting students online, and checking students' quiz? Thank you.
How long means how long I need the preparation for the online classes? That's the question, is it?
Yes, Professor.
That's depend really, because these classes I teach these classes like many years. The only difference this semester we done is actually try to realign everything, more focus into a virtual learning setup. So it took time actually in the beginning, because everything has to realign with the new format. But some of the concept, all these quizzes, everything electronically, I have them. So because of that, it wasn't too trouble, but it's still everything more changing into a like virtual learning approach took a little bit of time, depending on the class, maybe like sometime 2 to 3 hours, sometime even more. And the exam quizzes, things like that, grading gonna take time anyway. So I taught this semester like 3 classes, each has about 20-24 students. So sometimes it's a whole day for the grading. So that's the biggest challenge.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Now the next question is from Lee Ho. How to prevent cheating in the virtual class?
Say it again. How?
How to prevent cheating in virtual class?
Okay, so that's the main thing. We actually prevented that by proctoring virtually. So what we done, we actually proctor the whole exam. Let me show you that slide again. So this is I'm proctoring the whole exam. Let me go back to that slide quickly. Right here. So which means if you do, there are 2 options, right? You can do the lockdown browser, but that is not good for physics class. So what we done, we actually proctor the whole class by using the WebEx or Zoom. You can do any method you like. So all the student has to switch on their webcam and then show me their workspace. So I can see everything they're doing technically. So I compare the class average. It exactly similar to the last semester. So there's no cheating at all.
Great, Professor, thank you. Now we have only last minute, so last but not least, the question from Janti. What are your procedures of preparing the virtual lecture class via video conference? It would be great if you raise those steps from the beginning to the end. Thank you.
So usually when I don't do usually PowerPoint presentation. This is actually for calculus-based physics class. We actually do a lot of problem solving. Because of that, I need the whiteboard to write it down. So usually what I do, I write it down everything very in detail on my tablet, and then explain step by step all the theories, concept, and everything, like first 15-20 minutes of the class. Then we jump into the question, and then slowly we building a concept and then principles into the problem solving session. And then I ask the student the feedback, and then I ask a couple of random questions from random student, and then continue. So that's the process I done for this class actually.
Okay, now come to the end of the presentation. I would like to say thank you so much for joining us and sharing a good topic to our audience. Okay, thank you, Professor. See you next time.